In tonight's stories, fear takes many forms: the human, the divine, and the unseen. A park ranger finds what's left of a child deep in the Appalachian woods. A murdered woman's perfume becomes the scent of death for her killer. A carnival of God turns into a pit of blasphemy, and a book made of flesh remembers every scream. 7 tales of sin, scent, and the shadows that follow long after the lights go out. Welcome to Nightmare Proof, where true horror comes alive. Here, you'll hear real stories of the strange, the disturbing, and the unexplainable. Turn down the lights, get comfortable, and prepare to face the darkness. Story 1: Terror in Appalachia. Have you ever had a job that you actually enjoyed and figured you could do it for the rest of your life? I did once, when I was 25 years old. I got a job as a ranger at the Smoky Mountains National Park. In all honesty, the job was gravy. Just riding around all day on a golf cart enforcing rules and picking up trash. Every once in a while, there were some unruly campers, but other than that, I loved it. But one cool fall morning changed all that. In fact, it changed my life forever. I was riding around like normal when a young couple ran in front of my cart. I had to slam on the brakes to keep from hitting them. They were freaking out, and the mother's eyeliner was running from all the tears. They were camping in an RV and explained that their 5-year-old snuck out in the middle of the night while they slept. I tried to calm them down and assure them that he had to be close by, but they were adamant that they looked everywhere and he was nowhere to be found. They were scared and had already called the police, who had yet to show. I didn't have any kids of my own, but I could tell these folks were hurting. I felt that as a ranger, I had a responsibility to help them. So while they waited for the police, I told them I'd search a nearby trail for the boy. They seemed satisfied by my offer, so I parked my cart and headed out on foot. The woman sent me a picture of her child so I'd know who I was looking for. He was a sweet and innocent-looking kid, smiling while holding up a fish they'd caught the day prior. She said he was wearing a baseball cap from his dad's favorite sports team and answered to Jack. I started my trek hopeful, certain that he'd wandered somewhere close by. Missing persons were something I'd dealt with before, but they were always found within a few hours. As I walked, I called out his name over and over, but there were no replies, and the woods were dead quiet. I prayed that poor Jack didn't slip into one of the many streams and drowned, or God forbid, became the prey of a hungry black bear, though I tried my best to push thoughts like this down. As I walked on, I began to hear some strange noises, an owl-like hoot that seemed to follow me the deeper I went. I'd studied many of the animals that were in these woods, and had never heard a call like that before, and I thought most owls only came out at night, but you never know in these woods. One of the older rangers often told me he saw Bigfoot multiple times a week. He even claimed that if you brought him a bag of jerky, he'd pat you on your head. But hey, his name wasn't Crazy Gary for nothing. Meanwhile, I saw no signs of the child, not even a single footprint. By this time, I figured the police had arrived and would send in the hounds. But just before I turned around, someone finally answered me. A child's voice called out to me. "Hey, I'm over here." I quickly ran in its direction and shouted again. "Jack, is that you?" I called out, but there was no reply. Figuring he was scared, I persisted. "I'm a ranger. Your parents and I are looking for you. If you can hear me, follow my voice." But again, nothing, though I was certain it was him. Now off the beaten path, I heard that stupid owl again. Not sure why it was following me, but I was a man on a mission. I pushed through, brush and briars, trying to find this lost child. All of a sudden, I'd hear him again. He was even closer now. "Mister, please help. I'm lost," he said in a weak voice. "Where are you? Are you hurt? Just come out. I'm trying to help you." The brush was so heavy that I had to snap large tree limbs just to reach him. The briars had shredded my legs and left them a bloodied mess. Finally, I'd come to a clearing, but there would be no little boy waiting for me. Instead, I saw a run-down old shack in the middle of the forest. It was falling apart and looked as if it'd been here for 100 years. The roof looked like it was made of straw, and there were no windows. There was no door either, and I could see right inside. I had been at this job for almost a year, and no one had told me there was a house out here. Letting curiosity get the better of me, I decided to walk inside. Once in there, a putrid smell caught my attention. I say that because it almost made me gag. The only way I could describe it was something dead and rotting. Perhaps that wasn't odd, since everything in here was old and molding. In fact, the best way I could describe this house would be from that one video game. You know, the one where you have to save the president's daughter from that weird zombie cult. In the middle of the table, I noticed an old pot. It had this strange substance leaking out the side that looked like tomato paste. Again, I let my curiosity decide my next move, and what I saw next was something I'd never forget. Inside of that pot was human remains boiling in blood. There were fingers and toes, a nose and ears. Eyeballs floated to the top and looked right into my soul. To top it off, these remains were small, like that of a child's. I dropped to the floor and began to hyperventilate. I couldn't believe what I'd just stumbled upon. I didn't want to believe it, but this wasn't a dream. Lying on the floor next to me was something else familiar. A blood-stained baseball cap, the same one from the mother's picture. Something terrible happened here and I needed help. I grabbed the bloody cap and rushed outside, but what waited for me was something I never expected. Blocking my way were two old people. Two disgusting people. They both wore rags and had long and scraggly gray hair. The man had a beard that was stained red around his mouth. The woman's teeth were rotten and her nails long and yellow. They both began to giggle and make strange hoots at each other. I knew then it was no owl I was being stalked by. Then the old woman uttered the words, "Help me," in a childish tone. Adrenaline filled my body, and I pulled out the mace that each ranger was given. I sprayed it directly into their contorted and inbred faces. They fell to the ground, squealing and writhing in pain. I ran away as fast as I could, all the while horrified by what I'd found. Never did I ever think this peaceful job in nature would take a turn like this. That poor child had been brutalized by those monsters, and it was too late to save him. I ran and ran, not stopping no matter what. I quickly found myself back at the camping area. Two police officers were jotting down notes as the worried parents explained what happened. I ran over and nearly tackled one of the officers to the ground. I literally shook him by his collar, recounting the horrors I'd come upon. "They killed him!" I cried. "Those monsters killed him! You have to do something!" I'll never forget the look on both parents' faces as I broke the news. I even handed over the gory hat as proof to what I found. The police quickly called for backup and shut down the entire park. They took me and the parents to the station for interviews. I could hear the mother's wails of sorrow echoing down the halls. In fact, I still hear them in my dreams to this day. I was so distraught and horrified, they were talking about committing me. I heard that they sent a SWAT team into the woods and did what? They had to. The feral people tried to attack them. They didn't even understand human language. They were like animals that fed off of their fellow man to survive. I heard that more than a few bodies had been found, all eaten and mutilated just like young Jack. While not sent away, I did many years of therapy to try and cope with what I saw. I was prescribed meds and even dealt with bouts of PTSD. I quit my job, of course. I never went back into the woods, period. It even took me a while to look at food the same way again. Just knowing what happened to that child made it impossible to eat. I lost over 100 pounds and had multiple hospital stays. As the years passed, I've managed to put all this behind me. But I'll never forget the horrors I saw that day. In the woods, people are usually afraid of bears or getting lost. But I've seen the true terror of what can happen out there. That feral hillbillies stalk innocent campers with murderous intent. That hundreds go missing every year, and I saw firsthand what happens to them. Story 2. Alexis. Wherever Alexis wafted, she would leave this heavenly scent, the only trace of her that people could sense. For she had been a beautiful woman when she was alive, and it was only fitting now that dead, her ghost, unable to rest in peace from the injustice of her murder, would be scented like a flower such as never bloomed on earth. People would stop in their tracks, sniff, and look around in delighted wonder. They couldn't know it was Alexis passing by, remembering her days of life. One night, Alexis wandered by a man punching a prostitute. The woman didn't cry out, and the scene jolted Alexis to the present moment, to the living. She paused, and the man stopped what he was doing, confused by her perfumed presence. The woman ran off, scrappy on her stilettos, her silver and blue makeup streaming, and her rough yellow hair all awry. Alexis stayed with the man, and he went home to wife. She too smelled the gorgeous scent of Alexis hanging around her husband. Alexis stayed longer, but she soon dimmed away, uninterested in what was unfolding. She had not been concerned with such transactions when alive, but now dead, it seemed that she could hardly escape them. Retracing her life, she saw these men and these women everywhere, in street corners and hotel rooms and bars. She saw the men get violent and angry because they didn't want to pay, because the woman didn't actually love him, because the woman now knew their secrets, because the woman didn't look as pretty after the deed was done, because the woman didn't do what he thought he had paid for. So many reasons to hurt women, and not just one man, so many. Alexis flitted to the violence. The violence reminded her of her last seconds of life and grounded her in the reality of the moment. But then, when it was over, she started floating again, yearning to settle her score. One day she found him, hurting another woman, his hands around her neck. Alexis paused, and her scent filled the air. The woman's eyes flickered open as Alexis's scent gave her strength. The man stared in terror. He remembered her scent, even though he thought he had forgotten it. Alexis moved closer to him, and the scent permeated his body. The woman ran off, and the man clapped his hands over his face to block the scent. But it was too late, or it was no use. Blood started pouring out of his nose and mouth, and soon he was dead, leaving a dreadful stench even before the natural laws of biochemistry took over. Alexis still roams the streets of her town, for her score is not settled and never will be. No one knows, for no one cares. But she is there, the patron saint that no one asked for, her beautiful scent forever hanging in alleyways, hotel rooms, bars, and back streets. Story 3. God wants all of his royalties for all of the books he has written or inspired. It started with a random theme park that was made on a random patch of land. It was ordinary roller coasters and rides, but they all went slow and with no restraints. This looked dangerous, as rides went upside down really slowly, and so logically, you would fall out of them. Then, we saw people going on them, and we were surprised how they didn't fall, as the rides went slowly upside down and sidewards. It was God who held them inside the rides, and then even I went on and felt God's love and trust. It was amazing, and I kept going on to them. Then, a year later, the ride owners said that God wanted his royalties on all of the holy books he has written or inspired. The theme park owners were classed as prophets. There were generation of royalties that was owed to God, and the living must pay them off. If the royalties weren't paid to God, then we would all fall off the rides. Some people refused to believe it, and they went onto the ride believing God would not let them fall. As the ride slowly went upside down, they all fell to their deaths, and everyone screamed. It was a bloody day. How could the living pay thousands of generations worth of royalties to God on all of the holy books he has written and inspired others to write? It was impossible to pay back, but so many people were addicted to feeling God's presence in holding them tight into the rides as it slowly went upside down. Some even still went onto the rides, hoping God will hold them onto the rides and not fall out. They also died, and they kept telling us how God wanted his royalties for allow the things he has written or inspired. Then, a homeless man came onto the theme park, and he accused the ride owners of blasphemy. The homeless man said, "The ride owners are controlling demons to keep people onto the ride, and it's not God. They are magicians. God does not care for royalties, money. He loves all of you." Then, the homeless man was picked up into the air and thrown far away, and when he hit the ground, he died instantly. People started to run and scream, and some of them were being picked up and thrown so far away. The theme park owners disappeared and fled. It's completed abandoned now, but now and then you get eerie movement. Story 4. A racist surgeon did good surgery on me. Even though he doesn't like me, I needed brain surgery, and 3 hours before the surgery, the brain surgeon comes to see me. I had no support next to me, and I was alone. The brain surgeon admitted to me that he was a racist, and that he did not like my skin color, nor the religion that I came from. I was terrified at that point, and the thought of having a racist brain surgeon doing surgery on me was the most harrowing thing I had ever experienced. I had no other choice but to go through with it and hope for the best. I need this surgery. Then, after the operation, the racist brain surgeon told me that it was a success, and the racist brain surgeon also told me that I would be fine. I couldn't understand why a racist brain surgeon would do a thorough good job on me, as I am from the group of people that he hates. I was paranoid, and then 6 months later, I was completely fine. Life was good, and I was having conflicted feelings about all of this, and I wanted to contact that racist brain surgeon, but I decided to just leave it. I have mixed feelings about this whole situation. Then, one nighttime, I wasn't feeling well, and I sneezed really loudly. It was such a big sneeze that I could see the germs. Then the germs became clearer, as they seemed to be trapped inside something in the room. They were trapped inside an invisible thing, with a human-shaped figure. I could see the human figure outline, and it was a ghost that had inhaled the germs that came out of me. The thing talked and said, "I like feeling ill," and I could see the germs moving around inside the ghost. Even when the ghost moved around, the germs inside of him were still trapped. I sneezed some more, and more of my germs got trapped inside this ghost. I could see them all moving around trying to get out, and they seemed to be desperate to get out. I like germs, but germs don't survive in me that long. And then, all of the germs that were inside this ghost started to die. They stopped being visible, and the ghost wanted more germs inside of it, as illness made it feel alive. I sneezed some more, and I saw more of my germs inside the ghost. I saw how my germs were moving around so fast inside the ghost, and then it disappeared. Story 5, Flesh. All right, Jackie, I'm heading out. Susie's voice bounced off the walls, echoing to the bathroom door. Okay, be safe, Jackie replied. The door squeaked shut. Jackie was alone. After finishing her night routine, she crawled into bed and closed her eyes. The next morning, she looked over, and Susie's side was empty. Jackie messaged Susie, "Where are you?" After waiting, no response. Later, she ran into Susie's friends, with whom she had hung out the night before. "Hey, have you guys heard from Susie? She wasn't in our dorm when I woke up." "Who's Susie?" one of the girls said, chuckling. Jackie frowned. "She was with you guys last night. We don't know her. Leave us alone." That night, after class, Susie's bed was still empty. Jackie went to message her, but Susie's contact vanished. Jackie fell asleep, and her nightmare warped the dorm. Walls oozed dark, sticky liquid, doors slammed on their own, and shadows slithered like living smoke. Whispers hissed her name. Then she saw Susie, her face stretched, half her skin peeled back, eyes bulging, dripping black liquid, mouth gurgling a wet scream. Jackie ran, but every hallway twisted back to her empty bed, Susie gone, replaced by darkness and the stench of iron. Jackie woke up, startled in her sweat-drenched sheets. She grabbed her phone to check the time, 3:33 a.m., but something caught her eye. A message from Susie. "I made it back. Sent 3 hours earlier." Relief flooded her. She looked closer and saw Susie sleeping in her bed. It was just a bad dream. She tried to go back to sleep. But faint whispers started crawling out from under her bed. Heart pounding, Jackie pushed herself off the bed and kneeled down to peer underneath. Nothing, just an old, weird book. She pulled it out. The cover was sticky and gross. Flipping a page made her stomach twist. 3D human faces pressed into the paper, eyes staring, skin raw and wet, mouths frozen in screams. Some faces were mashed together, contorted. The book felt alive. Then she saw it. Susie's face. Only wrong. Twisted, stretched, moist, and tender. in a way that made her stomach churn. Jackie's hands trembled, her heart racing, until she realized she didn't look back at her roommate's bed. She didn't need to. Something was there, something pretending that isn't Susie. Story 6. What's the most unexplained experience you've had? Here's one of mine. I've been in law enforcement for over 16 years here in Texas and have seen more than my fair share of tragic, creepy, and downright unexplainable things on the job. From murder scenes to suicides to fatality accidents, sometimes a place just feels different. I've posted here before about a burglary in progress call I responded to, but here's another encounter that still sticks with me. I may have shared it before, but I figure it's worth repeating for everyone. There was one call I went to, a death notification that really freaked me out. I had to contact some family members of deceased woman that was involved in a fatal car accident a few miles away from her home. When I arrived, I met a woman near the roadway, just inside the property gate. She said she heard me coming from miles away. I asked her if she lived at the residence, which she confirmed she did. After asking her to speak with me at the house, she agreed, but said she needed the walk, as the house was about 75 yards from the road. After making it to the house, I approached the front door on a small wooden porch and began scanning the driveway. For the woman, it was about 1 a.m. and completely dark. While looking for the woman, the front door opened and a younger woman appeared. She was concerned about my presence and asked if everything was okay. I asked if I could speak with her and any other adults inside, and she welcomed me in. I told her I would wait for the woman I met near the gate, and she told me nobody else should be home. I then freaked out and began searching the property. Nothing. After entering the residence, I told her and her husband the news about Susan, which ended up being her mother. She said her mother moved in a few months back after her father had passed and wasn't handling it well. While she and her husband were comforting one another, I began looking at photos on the wall. There was this picture of a mid-aged woman that stuck out to me. She was a younger version of the woman I spoke with near the gate. While looking at the picture, the daughter confirmed that was her mother, the woman that passed in the wreck. I spoke with the ghost of the individual that died in the crash just before telling her family what happened. This experience, and many others, prompted me to start sharing stories like these from the job. If you're interested, I've got a video about this, and similar stories from fellow officers on my YT channel, Policing the Shadows. So let's hear your stories. What did you experience that you could not explain? Story 7. The Sound of the Night. I don't even know how to start this, but I need someone to hear it because no one else will believe me. I was house sitting for a friend last weekend. Nothing big, just a normal suburban house while they were out for 2 nights. The first night was quiet, maybe too quiet. I remember thinking how peaceful it was, like the house was holding its breath. Around midnight, I was scrolling on my phone when I heard a faint tapping. At first, I thought it was the pipes. Old houses make all sorts of noises, but this was different. Rhythmic, soft, almost like someone was lightly tapping their nails against the window on the far side of the living room. I got up and looked out, but nothing was there. I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination. I went back to the couch, but the tapping continued, now from inside the house, from upstairs. I froze. I didn't call anyone. I didn't run. I just listened. There was a soft shuffle, like feet moving slowly across the carpet. Then, right outside the hallway door, I felt it. A coldness, like the air itself was heavier. And then a whisper, so quiet I could barely hear it. "You shouldn't be here." I bolted upstairs, thinking maybe it was my friend's kid who had snuck out, but the rooms were empty. All doors shut, windows locked. Nothing out of place except that feeling, like someone was following me, just out of sight. I tried to laugh it off, told myself I was being paranoid. But when I went to check the guest bedroom, the door slowly creaked open. No wind, no one there, just the dark hallway, stretching longer than it should. And the whisper again, closer this time. "Stay, forever. I didn't wait to see what came next. I ran out of the house, barefoot, straight to my car. I kept looking back. The living room window, the one closest to the hallway, was lit up faintly, and I swore I saw a figure standing there. Tall, thin, impossibly still, watching. I called my friend that night. They laughed nervously and said the alarm system never registered any intrusions. Nothing had moved. The cameras didn't catch a thing. I don't know what I saw. I don't know what whispered to me. And I know I'll never go back. Sometimes, at night, when I'm home, I swear I hear that same soft tapping on my windows. And sometimes, just for a second, I feel someone breathing in the hallway behind me. I don't know how long it's been following me, but I know I can't ignore it. Thank you for watching Nightmare Proof. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share to keep the nightmares alive. Have a story of your own? Send it in, and you may hear it here next time. Until then, sleep well if you can.